Hi, I'm Emily Agnew at Luminous Listening, and welcome. If it's your first time here, happy to see you and hope this is useful to you. If you're returning, welcome back. For our video today, I'm going to share more with you about 6 trauma relief modalities that I've personally experienced, including some stories. Some require one-to-one work with a therapist. One is a hands-on form of body work. The EFT tapping, which may already be familiar to many of you, is something you can do by yourself on the fly. And I've also included a form of couples therapy, which I think is fantastic, which helps turn your relationship into a trauma healing safe space. And then last but not least, there's focusing, which combined with inner bonding, which I teach, can be a very powerful way of staying present and healing traumatized parts of us. So the 6 modalities. The first one is EMDR. This is widespread, very well known. Yet many clients I speak to they vaguely heard of it, but they don't really know what it is. EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a mouthful. It was developed by a woman named Francine Shapiro, who kind of accidentally discovered that alternating stimulation of the two sides of the brain while discussing traumatic stuff can reduce the charge. There's more to it than that. So I'll tell you a story about me. I mean, during a challenging divorce, my ex sometimes left rageful messages on my voicemail, and I would shake all over after listening to them. It got to the point where when the phone would ring, I would shake. So I sought help from a wonderful therapist, and she taught me this EMDR, how to create a safe space inside yourself. It's like you go to a beautiful place in nature, and then you populate it with beings, animals, human beings who help hold different aspects of your safety. And then when you're ready, so for some people, if you have more severe trauma, that process might take weeks just to create the safe space. For me, we were able to do that pretty quickly. I think this whole thing took just a few sessions. And then you talk about the stuff that's going on while both sides of your brain are being alternately stimulated. So in my case, I was holding in one hand, in each hand, these buzzers that go bzzz, bzzz. It's very soothing, and it just discharges. So after a few sessions of that, I didn't shake anymore when the phone rang, which was great. So that's an example of EMDR. And I know people who've taken longer, like a year and a half, 2 years, but it's gotten really substantial relief. It depends on the nature of the trauma. Then the second modality, again, very, very well known, is EFT, stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. That was developed by Gary Craig. And it utilizes tapping on different acupuncture points of the body to release intense emotions and kind of help energy pass through the body. And the nice thing about EFT is you can do it by yourself. And there's also a variety of there's protocols that are more complex where you say certain carefully structured sentences as you tap. I was just taught a really kind of quick and dirty version where you tap through a set of points, and then you do some eye movements, very specific, and make some sounds, and then tap again and repeat. So you start by assessing the intensity of the emotion on a scale of 1 to 10, and then you go through that process, tap, eye movements, tap, and then you reassess the numbers. So, for example, to give you an example, a prospective client called me once needing a kind of support that I'm just not able to offer, and I tried to get that across, but the person became very angry and agitated and raised his voice. And so I exited the phone call as kindly and quickly as I could. But I was shaking afterwards from the intensity of the interaction because I have stuff from the past about anger. So, I assessed the number, and I tapped it, and then I tapped, did the eye thing, tapped again. It went from a 9 down to a 7. Then I did it again. It went down to a 5. And when it's down to a 5 or so, then I have enough like prefrontal cortex online then that I can go in and do focusing or dialogue with the part of me that gets really scared and let it know that we're in the present now, it's not the past. And so anyway, so it's a very powerful tool for being able to take loving adult responsibility for yourself. It's not about getting rid of the feelings. It's about just settling them enough that you can then go in and be with yourself in a loving adult presence kind of way. So the third modality is somatic experiencing, again, broadly known, SE, developed by Dr. Peter Levine. And on their website, they say it's a body-oriented approach to the healing of trauma and other stress disorders. That it releases traumatic shock, which is key to transforming PTSD and the wounds of emotional and early developmental attachment trauma, which for us as HSPs, early developmental attachment trauma can definitely be an issue. So I did SE sessions over a period of time with a colleague. I was working through a very challenging family situation that brought up fears. It was the trauma, the original trauma was must have been pre-verbal, because it brought up like life survival level fear about being totally misunderstood and then somehow ending up utterly alone, in the most threatening kind of way. So my internal experience of the SE was, it felt internally a lot like focusing, where you're going in and just being in this really kind of tender, deep way with what's going on, except that the SE practitioners also they're very attuned to your body language. So they can really help you stay tuned into things that you just wouldn't even notice or know to note. So I found that very, very powerful. I got powerful shifts from that. Another one, which was totally new to me, is called Associative Awareness Technique. It's AAT. And there's a link in the article that goes with this video. But it teaches your brain to be less physically reactive to stress. And that is really cool. It's done one-on-one. The practitioner who I've done it with, she has you lie on a massage table. And then she does a series. She works on one quadrant of the body at a time. So this whole arm, and then your opposite leg, and then the other leg, and then this arm. And there's like 6 different, I think, kinds of touch that happen. Like sometimes it's taps, sometimes it's little strokes, sometimes it's like light little pinches. And it's the idea that if you have trauma, it's like even having your body approached can feel like it brings like a little reaction. And something about having her do that, it's like after a while the body just gets it on a cellular level that it's okay. And it's hard to describe like how relaxing that is. And for me, like I just started sleeping better after the first session. I hadn't realized I was kind of vigilant in my sleep. So that's a really cool thing. And there's practitioners, I think, on that website that's in the article. And she said that there's a level 1 video for the lay public that you can buy. It's like $50 or something, and you can have someone learn to do it on you. I haven't used that video myself. But okay, then the fifth thing is emotionally focused therapy. This is kind of the other EFT. This is the model couples therapy that was developed by a Canadian psychotherapist named Dr. Sue Johnson. Her book is called Hold Me Tight. And it's a really good book, but to learn how to do this, you really have to work with a couples therapist, because the whole point is that it helps you see where the two of you, your raw spots, touch each other, where you each get triggered. Triggering meaning that you each get like some level of a trauma reaction where your prefrontal cortex goes offline and you just can't think straight. But the cool thing about emotionally focused therapy is it's highly researched, and it just leaves all other modalities in the dust. It helps 90% of people who do it see significant improvement, and something like 70 to 75% see their issues resolved. So that's wildly successful by therapeutic standards. And that includes couples where one or the other is suffering from some kind of PTSD or depression or even chronic illness. So I'm a big fan personally. It really helped me and my partner. What the therapist did is he helped us each see like when we're getting triggered, because it's hard to keep self-awareness at those moments. Like for me, the feeling can be as if my eyeballs are mounted like 6 inches behind the front of my face. It's hard to describe, but it makes sense. It's like I'm pulling back into myself. Or I described in the article last week about feeling like the fog is rolling in. So now we know to pause at those moments, and therapist like helps you kind of like lends you some bandwidth to be able to actually just look at your partner and realize, wow, they're not threatening me at this moment. They're not angry. They more just look sad. So it helps you stay connected. Oh, that's really, really powerful. And focusing, which I teach, and along with inner bonding, can be a really effective intervention for subtle trauma if you're able to retain enough presence to stay with the traumatized part of you. If the hypo or hyper arousal that occurs is so great that you just have no presence, then you got to go to one of these other modalities where you have company can help you hold the space. And I've posted on my website, and there's a link from the article that goes with this video to it's a very cool story about me having a panic reaction being rolled into an MRI machine, and I had to leave that day. But I was able to use focusing actually to connect with an incident I had forgotten about that happened when I was little, where I bashed my head and had to have stitches. It turns out that there was a way that I was handled in the emergency room that left me with some trauma, and I was actually able to resolve it in one focusing session. So that's posted on the website on the articles page. So those are the 6 modalities, and between them, I'm realizing, describing them to you, that they really offer a powerfully synergistic safety net, because they cover a lot of different situations, and you can access them at different times and in different ways. So since this is an issue for sensitive people, if these aren't familiar to you, and if you think you might have signs of subtle trauma, read more. Go to these websites and read more about these modalities. Consider seeking a practitioner in your area if the modality is something that you need to do one-on-one, because it can make a huge difference in your life. So I'll post a list in the next week or so on the resources page at Luminous Listening of these 6 modalities. So thank you very much for listening. Again, I'm Emily Agnew. This is Luminous Listening, and I hope you have a great day. And do let me know if these things are helpful.